Welcome to the Crafting Character Podcast. Steve Carter here, and in association with my good friends at Preaching Today, Food for the Hungry, and Hope International University, I'm excited to bring you a podcast to help you get better at the craft of preaching, helping you get better at the art of communicating the scriptures, so that whenever you pick up the Bible, whenever you're given the chance, the privilege to be able to teach God's word, you just feel like you're getting better, that you're holding this responsibility with a level of humanity, inspiration from above, but also that you're learning how to do this. We have some incredible plans for this podcast in 2023 to help you really learn to break down a talk and deliver a talk and get better at the art of preaching. But remember, it's not just about that. That key word in the title is and, craft and character, because we can only really teach and lead and shepherd and pastor from a place of healthy character. Because at the end of the day, in a culture that's growing more and more cynical for the voices on the stage, they want to see people who are about it, who live this, who embody this, and who can speak about their experience with Christ and their experience of what Christ is doing in them and for them, and not just through them. And that's why this podcast exists. And I'm so grateful for my friends at Preaching Today. Man, this is what they want to do. They want to help you get better at the craft and character of preaching. I'm so grateful for my friends at Food for the Hungry, because that's what they're trying to do, is just embody what is possible in communities and villages all around the world. I love partnering with them. Even my church, Forest City Church in Illinois, we partner with them, and it's just been amazing. And I love just the heartbeat of Hope International University, who just longs to see these biblical students grow in the craft and character. And they actually have this amazing scholarship set for ministry students. And I'd love to tell you more about that, because it's just amazing how they want to make it affordable, because so many students who are going to ministry come out and they are just filled with so much debt. And it's hard to do ministry when you got the pains of debt. And I love that Hope is just trying to do something new with a scholarship that they've created. So friends, this is just such an exciting episode, because we're going to look into the teaching of someone that I just deeply, deeply respect. His name is Jarrett Stevens. He and his wife, Jeannie Stevens, who was on the podcast a few months back, they pastor Soul City Church in downtown Chicago. And recently I heard a teach from Jarrett, and it was so moving to me. He's talked about this whole a very good gospel, not the gospel according to me, but really the gospel of Jesus. You're going to hear a clip in just a moment, but Jarrett's just one of the best communicators. And what I love about him, and where we just gel, is his commitment to try and raise up other communicators. And he's really worked on creating a very affordable, a very accessible, a really great kind of digital coaching opportunity where you can get better as a communicator, where you can actually empower some of your younger communicators on your team or volunteers that you want to help them get better. This curriculum that he's created, it's a master class on communication, and I'm so excited for him to talk about it. But first, before we do that, get a sense of his sound, and then we'll break down the teach. We'll learn a little bit about how he arranges a talk, and then we will dive in to hear about how he is allowing God to shape his character in this season. Hear this teach, and we'll dive into the interview.
After all the good things that God had made, he looked at us, men and women, his sons and daughters made in his image, and he said in Genesis 1:31, "This is very good. This is very good." Everything else, good, good, good. He looked at us, his most precious and prized creation, and said, "No, this is very, very good. the ones whom God actually loves. This is very good. Whatever it is that's better than God's best, that's us. That's how God sees it. See, what those who hold so hard onto the gospel of original sin tend to miss is that our story actually begins in Genesis 1 with original blessing. There's an original blessing. God blessed humanity. God loves humanity. We are, according to God, very good in his eyes. You are blessed from the beginning. And while sin definitely impacted that blessing, it did not overpower that blessing. It did not lessen God's love for you. Now again, that doesn't mean that I don't sin. Far from it. God's very good creations make very bad decisions all the time. It doesn't mean that sin doesn't have consequences in my life. Far from it. You can look back on some of our greatest regrets, and my hunch is you'll be able to trace it back to some sin somewhere in your story. It doesn't mean that I don't need Jesus. Far from it. You and I actually need Jesus far more than we even know. But it's for more than just trying to make a mad God cool down and feel a little bit better about you. What this all means is that God starts and ends with you with love. Period. It's the whole point of why God actually came to us in the person and the power and the presence of Jesus was to be with us, to remind us, to show us just how much God loves us. See, here's the thing. I don't want you to get this mixed up. Jesus didn't come to change God's mind about you. He came to change your mind about God. He didn't come to change God's mind. Like, no. They're all right. Let me show you. I'll do some stuff that'll make you them okay. God, just give me a chance. Give him a chance. No. He came to change your mind about God, to say he is far more loving. He is far more caring. He is far more compassionate. He is far more forgiving than any other gospel you might have believed. That you can actually see and know and experience and share this life-changing love of God, to start from a place of being loved by God.
Well, Jarrett Stevens, we just had the privilege of hearing some of your wisdom, some of your sounds, and I'm grateful.
Sounds like wisdom.
Have you
Thanks.
to have you here with me on the Crafting Character podcast. Let's start like this. Tell me what you were trying to say in this teach. I know we only got a couple minute clip, but like what was the point of this teach? And give us a little backstory for our listeners.
Yeah. So, and first, hey, longtime listener, first time caller. Great to be with you on the pod. I've been listening for a long time, and obviously love you and love what you're doing in the world. So I'm really honored to be here. That was from a teaching series we did a little bit ago called "The Gospel According to Me," and it's just sort of things we think are of God or things that we think God wants that aren't. And that message specifically was that our assumption is that God's mad at me. You know, my assumption is God. I've disappointed God. I must be mad at God. And so in that clip and in that whole message, and this is kind of a common theme in lots of different teachings that I do, is, this idea of what do you think God thinks about when God thinks about you? That question, like, what is it you really think God thinks about? Because that's going to determine how you view yourself, how you view God, your place in this world. And what I was trying to say is like, you just cannot fathom how loved you are by God. And the whole point of Jesus is to teach, yes, but then to demonstrate the love of God for you. And so I borrowed from a Richard Rohr quote and moved it around and worked around a little bit. And basically said there that Jesus didn't come to change God's mind about you. He came to change your mind about God. And that's a huge shift, because I think there is a strand of theology that is like, no, Jesus came to make an angry God like you again. And in reality, he came to change our view, our broken, our incomplete view of God. So just that's what was going on there. Trying to use a phrase that we can talk about maybe later that might be memorable for people that can go with them once the message is over. And that's what that was.
I so appreciate that, and I've so over the years respect you as a communicator, as someone who excels at their craft and takes it so seriously. And maybe just give people a backstory, because you have a resume of different voices and mentors.
Yeah, I've been very, very, very blessed. Yeah.
Yeah, that I think, you are your own sound, which I so appreciate, but also
Took a long time to get there, though.
Yeah, and to sit with people that had discovered their unique voice, their sound. And I feel like, man, you've been able to take some of the best parts, but also still fully be you. Give us a little kind of a picture of where you began in the communication journey, preaching journey, and who are some of the biggest influences?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, like I started volunteering at the church that I'd grown up at. I started volunteering in the middle school ministry when I was a freshman in college, and was leading alongside the same leaders I had when I was in middle school. So it was kind of just a weird thing to be like, oh yeah, you used to yell at me for running around here, and now we're yelling at other kids together. And so pretty quickly, I mean, I can tell you the exact first message I gave, and it was so many millions of years ago. But I just remember when they asked me to teach, I took it so seriously. I created a man on the street, like a person on the street video for it that I shot myself with my dad's VHS camera. That's how old this is. And like edited the whole thing myself. And I think it was maybe like a 20-minute talk to maybe 13, maybe 15, if I'm using pastor math, kids. But yet, like, Carter, for me, like, it was like, I love this. I love doing this. And so they kept asking me to do it. And I would say what was true for me is I was just making it all up as I went along. I mean, keep in mind, I'm a freshman in college. It's like, I'm not even trying to be in church work at all. I'm a volunteer. And so usually, like, I teach Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings. And usually I would write my Wednesday night messages like at 4:00 on Wednesday. And it's just like, God in heaven, please help any child that was a part of that middle school ministry, that they would love Jesus today would be a sign of his goodness and providence. So kept doing that and really began to realize I really love doing this. And then, long story short, ended up joining the staff there while I was in college, and then realizing, I think I'm supposed to do this ministry thing. That ministry was growing and growing and growing. I had no ideas, no mentors. I was making all of it up as I went along. And this is before the internet. So there wasn't like any other resources other than other local youth pastors and trying to learn from them. So that took me here to Chicago to finish my last year and a half in college at a Bible college. And that's when we got introduced to Willow Creek Community Church. And I'd known about it when I'd come out. My wife, Jeannie's from here, and we were dating long distance. I grew up in California. And anytime I'd come to visit, we would make a point to go to Willow together, as a dating couple. And never thought that there would be any opportunity for us there, but just asked when I moved out here, hey, is there anything going on? And we ended up as 30-hour-a-week volunteers while I was still in college. There was like churches out like further in the western suburbs out here in Chicago that were like going to pay me money to do like 10 hours a week. And this place asked us to do it for free for 30 hours a week. And yet we were just so all in. And so as a volunteer there, I began teaching. I remember the first summer, Bo Shears gave me a shot to teach. And I can still vividly remember that message, exactly what I taught that Sunday night. Yeah. And then, so then it became like, I think this is my gift. And then what I realized at that church was there was just some remarkably gifted communicators there. And John Ortberg had gotten there a year before we had gotten there, John and Nancy and their family. And I would watch John on every Wednesday night and just go, holy crap, this is so different from anything I've ever heard any pastor or preacher do. Like, this is so smart, and it's so funny. And, to use a phrase that has become very popular these days, he would always teach about the thing beneath the thing. A lot of people are talking about that phrase. I hear a lot of people talking about it. But we used to always say that about, like, long before your book, like that was the thing I would watch John do. He's like, he's speaking to the thing beneath the thing. Like he's speaking to the deeper thing. And so I just began to be a student and learn everything I can. And I was teaching regularly, then became a teaching pastor at Willow Creek when I was 26. Wow. So started teaching there every weekend for a 20-Sunday ministry, and then at midweeks, which they used to do midweek service, and then on the weekends there, and that really became all I would do. And again, I would say, Carter, like I had the people that I was watching and learning from, but I didn't have any method. The only method I had was to manuscript my messages. Bo, my first boss at Willow, made me write them out word for word. And then in the first couple messages I gave, he made me record it into a micro cassette tape recorder so he could hear it beforehand. And I know he never listened to them, but what he was doing was getting me into the discipline of working it out.
Yes.
But that was all I had, was just the manuscripting method. So continued to be a teaching pastor there for many years. And then just through relationship and people that we had built really close bonds with down in Atlanta at North Point Community Church, ended up going down there and leading ministry down there, and then teaching every week there. And again, still, like, now I'm under, I think, one of the greatest church communicators, one of the greatest leadership communicators, under Andy Stanley. And again, I just like kind of pulled my notebook out every week. I'm like, what is he doing? Why is this? This is like so tight, and it's so simple, and it makes so much sense, and it's so approachable. And he has such a way of speaking to everyone in the room. And so had the privilege to be mentored by John by Ortberg when I was at Willow, and then mentored by Andy as a communicator when we were down at North Point, and just took everything I could take from them. Yeah. And then we started Soul City Church 12 years ago. And it was like, cool, you're up every week. This is like, I hope you enjoyed those weeks off that you had these last couple of years, because you're up every week. And that's really when it kind of became game time. I'm like, I have to figure out my way and my unique voice, because this is the bulk of, a majority of what I'm doing here. So that week in, week out, every week for the first few years, with a few exceptions, we have a great teaching team now, but we had to build that over the years. So those are some of the voices along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really great too is, some people who've gone to seminary, and I so much respect for that, and maybe sat under, Haddon Robinson back in the day, and they learned the Haddon way, and I've sat with some people who could just walk through how Haddon just was able to distill down, this is what we do as preachers and communicators. What I love about you, Jarrett, is you've had to like figure this out. And also I think really have become, in my opinion, a master at your craft. I would say, there are people that I listen to, and I come in to hearing their teach and their message, and like a Tim Keller. If I go back and listen to old Tim Keller messages, I'm not expecting him to make me laugh. I'm expecting him to like show me how the Hebrew scriptures points to the cross and to Jesus, right?
And blow your mind.
Blow my mind, right?
Yeah.
And then there's some teachers that I listen to, and I'm like, they're going to make something so, I like the word that you use for Andy, approachable, or it's going to be catalytic for the vision. They're visionaries. You though, man, I find myself on my toes every time I'm listening to you. And I mean that I don't know, are you going to go contextual and just blow my mind? Are you going to go cultural with some kind of like hip hop reference or something that's happening in the city of Chicago? Are you going to go somewhere humorous? Or are you going to go somewhere that's actually going to address the deeper issues? And you have this bandwidth when it comes to communication, and the way that you can turn on a dime a sentence to be funny or deep, or man, I never saw that text in that way. I'm curious, because you have a whole process. I've been learning about this, the Communicators Masterclass, and it's one of the reasons I wanted you on this podcast, because you're not just a student of the game, but you're now teaching some incredible communicators around the country. You're investing. You've done like this masterclass, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Yeah. But like, there's a funnel system that you often talk about that shapes your messages. I'm just curious. Maybe we could walk through that, because I want to pick your brain on how you use humor. I want to pick your brain on how you deal with tension. I want to pick your brain on how you get to these deeper issues, because I think so many communicators don't have the bandwidth that you have. And I just want to learn how you got that and how you've continually developed that.
Man, thank you. And that's a lot. And I don't know that I agree that most communicators don't have that bandwidth. I think it's about sort of the ability to put all the tools on the table instead of the ones you think you're supposed to use. Like, can you put all the tools that God has gifted you with that you may not even think relate to communicating, preaching, teaching, whatever you call it, and see what God might want to do, or what God might want to bear and bring into the world through all of that,
that's good.
So I mean, I think because like you and I, when we like last time we hung out, we were like laughing our butts off, and then we were also like crying. I mean, like deep, like connected, like talking about our lives in this last season. It's like, because that's life, like that's how it works. And so, for me, it's just like, how can I bring the fullness of who I am into this as best I can to speak to the fullness of who people are that God has entrusted me with in this moment.
And in full transparency, we also showed up 45 minutes late because we went to the same coffee shop, but
this is a problem
location.
This is something that no one wants to hear about, but this coffee shop, it's not Starbucks, but this is a unique, cool local coffee shop that has 2 locations in the same town with the exact same name. It's bound to be a problem. And it was for us. We were waiting for each other. Like some romantic comedy, we were sitting at the wrong train station waiting for each other.
And texting each other like, where are you?
Where are you? I'm here. Where are you? I'm here. Yeah. So, I mean, tell me where you want to start in that, Carter. Like what would be most helpful?
Let's talk about the coming up with a funnel. Cause I've heard you mention this.
That might help set the table. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly, like I said, I read books, went to Bible college. I mean, what I learned in Bible college about communication was in absolutely no way applicable to my real world. And that's not a knock on it. It's gotten a ton better since I was there. I thank God that at the same time I was finishing that up and taking these exegesis courses, the preaching courses, I was having real world experience of actually communicating at Willow in front of, 1,500, 2,000 students. And like, yeah, that's not going to work. What we talked about on Wednesday is not going to work on Sunday night. And so thankfully I had that balance there. But yeah, there were some books. I mean, there was, I went to like a communication like conference or retreat-ish type thing. And it was very, very, very helpful. But I think that, with those things, as helpful, as massively helpful as they've been for me, the quality of my transformation coming out of that is really based on the quality of my notes and how much I was paying attention, or if I happened to catch, a presentation that spoke to the specific thing I'm needing. So I just didn't feel like I had other than watching and learning and being a student, there wasn't a lot of like, okay, but how do I do this every week? How do I boil this down? And Andy Stanley uses, and he's largely he's played with it. He used to use it. He kind of comes back to it every now and then. His way of framing every message is me, we, God, you, we. I think that's what he taught us, is start with, a story from me and then move to we. Like, haven't we all experienced that? Well, here's what God has to say about that. What would it look like if you actually applied that to your life? Can you imagine if we all got this one right? So it was super helpful when I was down there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have to just start from a blank page and fully manuscript this thing and hope that it makes sense by the time I get to the end. Yep. Like I can actually start with the end in mind and go, okay, if I want to get here, how do I build my way back to getting there? And so when we started Soul City, that's what I was started with. I was using that method. I would literally have like highlighted on my notes, like this is the me section, this is the we section. And what I began to see was like, it was super helpful, but there were some things that I was doing that didn't fit into that I think just kind of were maybe like a turn of the gem, like another way of looking at that kind of idea. And so that's really where the funnel came up with. An art teaching team, our staff calls it the funnel of love, because it's just so corny to call something a funnel, but it's the only way I could describe it. And so if you imagine, kind of starting at the top is the widest part. So imagine kind of an upside down triangle. And at the top is emotional connection. That's the first thing, is making an emotional connection with people right out the gate. So that can be through humor. That can just be through, we're here in Chicago, so it can always be either a reference to the Bears or the weather or traffic. And, it's something to help.
All are terrible.
All are terrible.
Yeah.
All are terrible.
Yep.
Notice I did not say the Bulls in there. So, you're trying to lower defenses and bring everyone together. That's what the emotional connection piece is. Oh, we're all in this together. I'm feeling like I can kind of settle in here for a little bit. So
And
that's
Jarrett,
the first
real
one.
quick,
Yeah.
with the funnel though, this isn't in your prep. This is strictly in you've already done all your prep. This is in your actual
This is the writing.
writing of the communication.
This is the writing. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because my study is a hot mess. It's just like, little clipped articles and this sermon. It's all, I just try and gather all these things. And then when I have that sort of stew of things, this is the funnel I put all of that through to see which fits, which is for now, which is for later, which is good, which is great. So like trying to work that all through. So that's what it helps me really get crystal clear in the writing. So it starts with emotional connection. That's the first top one. Then into uncovered tension. And this for me, this was the kind of like an unlock for me, Carter, like that what I began seeing, the more and more I was a student of and paying attention to and still see to this day with a lot of communicators, a lot of preachers, a lot of that is they get up and start answering a question that no one is asking. And they've been thinking about this topic or this passage for the last 2-3 weeks, a month, whatever it may be. They've been walking around with it. They're doing the dishes thinking about it. It's all they've been thinking about. No one woke up thinking about the lineage of Jesus and how that might point us to whatever it may be. They're just not thinking about that. And so so many times what I would do when I got up to communicate was I just start in on this thing and assume that everyone's just going to get on board with me. Yeah. And what I really saw the value in is, can I name a tension? Can we uncover a tension that as many people as possible have felt? So what's a thing that we've all sort of faced or felt, and sometimes it can be kind of lighthearted, like so we're kind of using that emotional connection and that tension to sort of laugh about it. But then there's always a turn. Then there's always like a question, like that I would ask or that I put into my message that is really the turn of the message, and it's usually within the first 4 or 5 minutes. I could try to get it at the top, and the goal here is to again just. My hope would be if God's using what I'm saying and I've done my prep, my work, people sit up a little bit when you say that thing. It's like the Leo pointing meme, it's like if I hit the right tension of a thing that we've all wondered at some point, or we've all faced, or we've all questioned, or we've all felt at some point, that someone kind of in their heart would do that, like Leo, like yes, I've wondered that. No, maybe I didn't wake up thinking that or wondering that, but I have at some point before. And so then for me, it's like, great, now we can actually, I want to show you how God speaks to that.
Can we just sit on this? Because I think the value of tension, you do really, really well. And you're not afraid of it, because I think there are a lot of communicators who are like, hey, today we're going to be talking about hope, and hope is anticipating good, da, da, da. But they miss the actual act of creating the tension that makes people go, well, I need hope, or I want hope.
Exactly.
I want some sense of resolution. Help me, show me in God's word where I can find it. Yep. And then I think there's another side that I felt probably since 2016, 2018, that there's so much tension in our world that almost a lot of preaching and pastors are like, man, I don't want there to be any tension in the teach. Yeah. And I want this to almost be a respite from the cultural tension that's all around us. And again, that I feel like is minimizing and preparing people for actual life and demonstrating what following Jesus looks like. You put such a emphasis on the value of tension. Just talk more about why.
Yeah, because it's a great question. And to me, what I found is that you're exactly right. That tension gets people's attention.
That's good.
And it can also turn people off, and it can turn people away. Definitely, no doubt. And our world is filled with tension. I'm not talking about manufacturing. I'm not talking about trying to create a false sense of tension. I'm just trying to talk about what we talked about with Ortberg in your book, that thing beneath a thing. Can you touch on that question or that wondering or that wrestling that I've had at some point in my life? So, I mentioned one from that clip we played. What do you think God thinks of when we think of you? When he thinks of you, that's tension. What do you think God thinks? Right? So it's like, gosh, I don't really know that I know, but yeah, now that you mention it, so now it's like, okay, I've got your attention. You're going to be maybe have that much more buy-in, or I'm trying to think of ones I've done. What do you do with the people who've hurt you? We did a whole message on church hurt. And so it's, what do you do with the people? Like, what do you do? Do you write them off? Do you forgive them? Do you minimize what they've done? So just that's questions like, yeah, I've had people hurt me. Do I even know what I do with people that have hurt me? Another one that I use probably too much. I think it's one of my core messages that God's given me from our life. But what if God's best was on the other side of your yes? That's another one. They like at the top, like, what if God's best for your life is actually on the other side of your next yes to him? And so it's usually a question, not always, but it's usually a question. And again, if I'm doing it right, it's going to speak to something at a deeper level that the most amount of people have wondered at some point in their life. And if I do it right, then hopefully I have their attention. There's some buy-in, and it's like, yes, please tell me. Please, I would love to know that. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That's good. That's super helpful. Okay, so you got these two. Then where do you go from there?
Yeah, emotional connection, uncovered tension, and then the next play would be biblical direction. Like that's the next move in the funnel is, okay, well, when you know it, God has something to say about that. The Bible actually speaks to that. Jesus taught us about that. You're not the first person to feel that. Let's look at the prophets. Let's look at the Psalms. Like you are not the only one. So then it's like, oh, well, I actually want to, if God has something to say about this, I'll listen. I want to pay attention. And so that's, kind of the heart, the center of the message is, for me, in my context, for preaching at a church, communicating at a church, is biblical direction. And then right after that, I move into sort of real world translation. And what I mean by that is, there's so much in the context of everything that's happening in the Bible. And so we're going to take this thing, we're going to unpack it. We're going to talk about the richness of this language. We're going to talk about what it means. And then the next move is, okay, here's a real world translation. Here's what that really means for our lives today. Here's what that would really look like. Can what would that look like at work? Here's how that might work out in your family. So then I'm just taking this truth that God has given us that I believe is timeless, but it's also from 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, and saying, this is how it applies in our life, in your life today. And lots of times I'll use examples or stories from my life or from people that are part of our community, and to kind of show like, this is what that looks like. This is a picture for you to kind of hang on or hook it to, for you to take it with you. And then now we're like, at this point of the message, after I've done real world translation, it's like the wheels have come out on the plane, like, that all the lights have come on to fasten your seatbelt. And so it's the last sort of 5% of the message at this point is a hopeful vision. So it's kind of like Andy's last little bit of like, can you imagine if we got this right? Like, let me paint a picture for you this week. If you practice whatever it is, if you practice this principle in prayer this week, can you imagine what ... And you're just kind of painting a picture now for the future. This is what's possible if we trust God, if we follow God, if we apply this to our lives. And then the big one, a really big one for me, Carter, is the last one. And it's kind of where the whole funnel points to, is a next step application. Okay, so what am I going to do this week to actually practice this? How can I take this from this totally unrealistic setting of church where there's light and haze and music and all these people who are like here for the same reason? How do I take this to work tomorrow? How do I take this to school with me? What happens when I get into a fight with my spouse on Thursday? And so it's a big deal for our teaching team. It's become really high value. It doesn't always work with every message, but almost every single one is what is a real world, like, next step application that we can do. And it's usually practice based. We're going to try this practice this week. We're going to pray this prayer this week. Or it could be like, I want you to sign up and get around a table this week. I want you to, sign up to be a part of one of our table groups, or whatever it may be. So
is application different from, in your vantage point, from practice?
That's a great question. Sometimes the application is a practice.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a practice of prayer. Like, we all set our alarms to this time, this time, and this time. We put a Post-it note up on our mirror. So sometimes it's practice. Sometimes it's I want you to go to our Money Wise workshop to help you, get out of debt and to really begin to trust God with your finances. That's not a practice. That's just a practical next step. So it can be, but it's not always.
And in the Communicators Masterclass, you walk through this funnel. There's a number of different kind of courses in that are going to help you walk through that. I'm curious for timestamp. You said, hey, typically by 4 minutes, I'm at that second one. Do you have typical timestamps that you're trying to hit?
Ish.
ish.
It's more percentages for me.
Percentages,
It's like, okay,
gotcha.
yeah, if I'm on like page 3 and I haven't gotten to biblical direction, I've taken too long.
Yes. Okay.
And again, like everything, Carter, like this is what is most helpful for me. This is what our teaching team uses. Like, it's rad when I see other people from our teaching team and their notes and they have this blocked out. I'm like, oh, wow. I mean, that's the whole idea, right? Is I would help people. But like when you see others use it, it's like, this is super, like in the coaching that I do, we kind of say, hey, how can you take the best of this and make it work for your context? So sometimes I'll flip it up and mix it up. But for me, I've kind of now like known, okay, I don't want to spend too long on this emotional connection piece. That's going to be about 5%. Okay, maybe 10% I'm going to spend on building up this tension and kind of getting everyone on the same page. And okay, I want to spend 50% on the biblical direction. And, so it's kind of floating percentages for me. And because I fully manuscript every message, it's also page numbers. I know if I'm on this page and I haven't gotten here yet, I need to kind of rethink some things. Maybe I've gone too long on something. Maybe I haven't gone long enough on something. So
what's really great though is watching you teach, because there's a number of people who are primarily exegesis oriented. They got a pericope, they're going to live in that, they can do that. And then there's some that are more eisegesis or topical, and they can do that. What's so great about, for me, hearing you teach this funnel, I've seen you do this in a narrative. I've seen you do this in a just walking through a parable or a text. I've seen you do this with, a generosity campaign. What's amazing about the funnel is it works no matter what kind of teaching style you want to do, which is interesting.
I think so. I mean, as much as I even took it because I was so invested in this and like, okay, let's put this to the test. That last book I wrote a few years back before the entire world changed. I structured every chapter using this funnel. I was like, okay, how would it work in this context? Which is very different from writing. Is very different from a sermon that you write. It's a completely different muscle. And so I took it and applied it to the written, to each chapter. And I structured every chapter with this funnel in mind. And it was just, for me, I think it's helpful for others, but it's massively helpful for me. And if it's helpful for me and I'm doing it right, no one really sees the threads. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm those magician's tricks revealed shows right now where I'm kind of giving away the whole thing. And like anyone who goes to Soul City is like, wait a second, that's how he does every message. Right. But if I'm doing it right and well, you're not going to notice those little turns, those little transitions. But my gosh, in the writing, Carter, it has brought so much more peace to me, because it's like, at least I know I can lean into this or leverage this. I start with the end. Here's where I want to be at the very end. Okay, how can I work my way back from there? And it's just so much better than what I spent years doing, which is just staring at a blank document going, okay, well, let's just keep writing until something works.
That's right. What I also love about you, Jarrett, is you have such a high value on the craft of communication, a high value on the preach, but you also, it's like, you take it seriously, but not so seriously. And what I mean by that is you have this amazing line. You told me once that the message is just a part of a person's transformation, not the point.
Absolutely.
So unpack that, because I think again, there's so much, like, I just want to get this so right, because there's so much at stake.
Dude, crazy. I can almost make myself crazy with wanting to just give God my very best. And I want it to, I care about the craft. I absolutely, this is my 10,000 hours, dude. Like, this is what I've spent most of my life putting the most of my time into. So I absolutely care about it. And at the same time, it is a small, significant, but small part of someone's spiritual journey, of someone's spiritual transformation. And I think I've been around churches where the sermon was the pinnacle. It was the point. It was like, and what I think it's a very poor form of discipleship.
Yeah.
Because there's no interaction, there's no working it out, it is a form of discipleship, but if that's the primary form of discipleship, it is not a strong thing to build your life on. Is that this communicator is going to say everything that I need to hear from God in 30 to 40 to 50 to an hour and 10 minutes. And that's going to be it for me for this week as far as my spiritual growth. I just go, oh my gosh, no, this is just this is a part God uses, and I want to do, like, if this is my part of the body, coming out of Romans 12, like I want to do it the best I can do it, but it's just a part. It's just a part. It's not the point. And we build so much of our church life and so much of our church gatherings around the sermon. And, the thing I just have to keep reminding myself when I make it all too serious is like, oh my gosh, take it seriously, but hold it lightly.
Yeah, that's really
Take it
good.
seriously, but like hold it lightly. Like, who am I? I'm just someone trying to be as faithful to God as I can be with the gifts he's given me and the experience he's allowed me to have. But man, this is not about me. This is not about, so yeah, I try and not take it too seriously. And I try and not take, you see me communicate. I try not to take myself too seriously because I don't know. I just was like, I'm a part of the bigger thing God's doing in your life, but definitely not the point.
It's interesting you say that too, because, I think if recent studies are true, and I have no reason to deny that they are, but not everyone's coming every week. And so if they're only coming,
are you seeing that? That's weird. I have not seen that at all.
18 or 20 times a year, maybe tops. So if you're going for, let's say you go for 30 minutes and you teach 20 times, so that's 10 hours you're getting to shape someone.
Totally.
So you've got to be able to look at this pragmatically and say, hey, what is actually possible? Now, some of us are going 40 minutes, 34 minutes, whatever, but like, we're not talking about more than 11 or 12 hours of just sermon content for the majority of the people that we're speaking to. And that would be often our core of the church.
Those are the folks, exactly, who are actually like committed to some rhythm of being present and being a part.
Yes. So it's such a fascinating piece. Let's shift, because you talked about not taking yourself.
Wait, can I add one thought on that? No, because this has become, for me and John Jorgensen, one of the teaching pastors and really just one of my favorite communicators in the world. He and I are on like a holy obsession about how to decentralize the sort of discipleship of teaching part of it. How do you be faithful to the sermon, the part of the gathering? I think we see it modeled at least in Acts 2. We see that there was gathering together in the temple courts as well as breaking of bread in homes. So this matters, but if like, it's exactly what you just said, dude, is like, if we're banking on this being everything, and we've got maybe at best 20 Sundays a year with someone, boy, that's not great. So we are on a tear. How do we decentralize this, and how do we get this more accessible and more available to people beyond Sunday? And the other thing I'd say on the flip side of that is, and I see this a lot with maybe younger or newer communicators, is when they give a message, they feel like they have to say everything they can on generosity, or every thought is a good thought and it must be shared. And one of the other ways for me that's been so helpful of holding it lightly is when I'm realizing this is way too long, and by me saying more, they're going to remember less. I just have to trust and know there'll be another time to teach on this. And if I can trust that there'll be another opportunity, and I can take this idea, save it in a file, I don't have to say everything today or this week. And that's another way of kind of on the flip side of like just holding it lightly, like, yeah, not everything on the subject needs to be said. In fact, the more you're saying, the less they're remembering. So
that's so good. Yeah. The art of elimination, I had a mentor say, was if you don't have a preaching scalpel that you can just cut and fine tune, you're going to miss out. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's go back to kind of how we even started the conversation with your ability to shift on a dime. And this is something I've always just wanted to learn from you, because, I've, again, watched you. I mean, I'd say since 2002, I think 2002.
Wow, we're going back
years,
to the early aughts. The early aughts.
Bro, the aughts, man. I think I've watched you in those Axis days. Obviously, watched you at North Point and at Soul City. I've gone there a number of times, sat in the back, and just so appreciate you. Your ability, again, even when I didn't know the funnel, but your ability to go somewhere and then turn it. In your prep process, how much of that is just like free flow, and how much of that, because you manuscript, is so intentional, and it's like a choose your own adventure, and you're like, ooh, I could play this out a little bit deeper. No, I'm going to use humor. or, hey, I want to just keep pushing this thing deeper into the text. Like that kind of bag of tricks that you talking about, or tools that are out on the table. How do you discern which one to play in your manuscript process?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think there's the majority of it is in the writing.
Okay.
And then there's a minority or a percentage of it that is in the moment.
Okay.
And, because you know how it is, Carter, like there's things that you think make so much sense, or you think are so funny when you're by yourself, or when you're going on your walk and dictating, and where I'm writing. And then you get in front of people and you realize, oh, I guess it was just me. I'm the only person that thought this was deeper. I'm the only person that thought this was funny. So there is that dynamic of a living, organic community that does shape some of it very much in the moment, in partnership with the Holy Spirit in that moment. But I would say the majority of it sort of comes in the writing. And, there's an old punk-ish group from the 80s and 90s called the Pixies. And their whole, like every song structure, there's even a documentary I think called Loud, Quiet, Loud. And that's kind of like every Pixies song. You've got this loud blaring part, and then it pulls back and pulls away, and then it's big. And I think that for me is like, if every sermon is at 11, like if every moment of this teach is at 11, I'm just going to blow people's ears out. It's going to be so easy to disengage and disconnect from that. And conversely, if it's all kind of down and serious and at a 2 or 3, then people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, where are we? What are we doing? This is dragging on forever. So for me, it's that rhythm and that balance of, well, hey, let's laugh a little bit. And now that we're laughing, I want to, in a non-manipulative way, because again, this is just when you and I talk, this is how it goes.
Yeah.
But like turn and say, now that I've got your attention, or now that we're kind of laughing and feeling comfortable, let's look behind that. What's really going on? What's the deeper thing there? And then, for me, for a long time, humor was a way of sort of, well, predominantly my whole life, it's been a way of getting people to like me and think that I'm special. And so there were many times where I'd be teaching, I'm like, oh man, this has nothing to do with with what God gave me to teach. This is just me trying to get affirmation from, in some of these rooms from thousands and thousands of people, and so as I hopefully matured, for me, it's like, no, this is a tool. This is a way of helping someone lower their defenses and feel comfortable, laugh at some of the insanity of life. And then now that we're there, can we turn? And so I don't know. I mean, I think some of it too, Carter's just kind of, it's who I am. It's kind of just how I'm wired. And so I think that's why it kind of comes out in my preaching. But that cadence is, or that sort of, can we laugh a little, and then, man, let's turn this corner, and then we can teach a little more straightforward, and then let's laugh a little bit. I don't know. For me, it's just like, I think because I've been doing this for so long in the writing, I can have a sense, hey, this is going too long. And so it needs something. It needs a story, or it needs some humor, or it needs something, because this is just pretty long and straightforward. And so that's where the majority of it comes out in the writing. But then, a lot of it just sort of comes in the room. And because I manuscript my messages, I have some accountability to God and to myself, to not keep going, because knowing me and just some of my false selves, like I'll keep going for that laugh, or I'll keep going for that humor. Yeah. And I could just totally discredit my own authority or the word that God has given me, because I'm chasing after that. So it does help to have it sort of mapped out, at least, to some degree.
Talk about humor, because I think that's something you naturally do. And again, that ability to turn it, to make people kind of, I constantly think about this, our audience has smartphones. They're not bringing their Bibles. Some are, but many of them have it on, their app, and they're on their app. Mm-hmm. And if their app is on, then all of a sudden it's a Sunday, and their fantasy scores, or texting, or social media, and they're I want to get a picture of what's happening at Soul City, and then they're back. But like, you're communicating, and I think sometimes humor can bring them back in, or that great tension can bring them back in to re-engage in the text and re-engage in the message. But talk about humor for you. What makes a a joke work? What makes a story
gosh.
work? How do you do that?
Define humor. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it definitely has come, maybe that's my 10,000 hours, is just trying to get people to like me through laughter. That's what I've invested the majority of my life's work into. So some of it has just come from, I think I am funny, and I think I've worked on it, and I think I'm kind of naturally funny. I was as a kid. I could get my teachers to laugh their way out of disciplining me. Like I had, with great power comes great responsibility, of which I had no responsibility as a kid. I would just weaponize my humor. So I think there's that just kind of, some of it comes naturally to me. And that's true of some people, and it's not true of others. And there's some people who I would say are not naturally funny, who are very funny, or who have, who are able to tell a funny story in a way where they're not like a ha-ha, type person, but they get what people find humorous or absurd, and so, I think some of it's in for me, Carter, it's been that gift to me of the discipline of manuscripting helps me sort of say it out loud, and know where the ending is. Because there have been some times where I'm like, tell story about in my notes, and I don't know personally how it's going to end, or if it's supposed to end up, or if it's supposed to end down. And so that helps for me in the writing it out and to testing it out and saying it out loud, is I'm in my head, at least, it helps me get there. And I think for people who are naturally funny, the work will always be to rein it in. Yeah, it's like, totally. You can just go to, you can just play to that old false self of trying to get people to like you. And then it becomes more about you than it becomes about what God's wanted to do in their life. And so I think for people who are naturally funny, boy, it's really about using it precisely. Like you said, almost like that same with the scalpel. It's like, how can I use it at just the right moment? Have, as best I can. And then for people who are not naturally funny, can you just find some of the absurd things in life or the crazy things in life and tell a story about that? And what I've found to be true, and what's kind of become, when it comes to humor, a cardinal rule, is if I'm going to make fun of anyone, it's going to be myself.
That's right.
I'm not going to make fun of my wife, Jeannie. I'm not going to make fun of our kids. I heard one pastor not long ago, I was watching YouTube because I'm a student, man. I'm watching messages. Yep. And in the first 5 minutes, they told a story that made fun of their wife and made fun of one of their teenage kids. This is in the first 5 minutes, Steve. And I'm like, oh man, that's not, can you imagine what it's like for that teenage kid to have in this case, the dad up on stage in front of hundreds of people making fun of you? So I try as best I can to not use any humor at anyone else's expense. Sometimes it'll be definitely at Chicago or at the Bears, or in our case, the Packers, or, whatever. It's like, but never a specific person. And I've done that at times where I've hurt people by things I've said on stage. And I just don't ever want to do that. So for those who are naturally funny, that you really run the risk of doing that if you just kind of keep going and you don't rein it in and discipline it. And for those who aren't, maybe wouldn't say they're not naturally funny, I bet you something silly or absurd happened to you this week or last week. Some crazy thing that's probably happened to someone else. Yep. Can you tell that in such a way where people just go, oh, yeah, been there, and can lighten up, laugh a little bit at it. And so even if you may not be naturally funny, I bet you can tell a funny story from your life. So, and I think, go ahead. I would just say the other thing too is I've never been a huge fan of jokes. I like, as a funny person, I'm just not a big fan. I remember my dad bought me a book of jokes when I was 10, and I obsessed over it. And then I was like, this is kind of dumb, actually. I would never do this. And so that's it. But I would say that's a way, if you don't feel naturally funny, is you could tell a joke, but gosh, I would just make sure that you can tell it authentically as you, and that it aligns with what you're trying to teach, not just as a way of warming up the crowd, an opening act.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Do you have, do you capture moments? Cause, you talk about the absurd things that happen, so my name, I go by Steve Carter, but my, official spelling is Stephen, which means every time I get into an Uber or Lyft or anytime I'm at the bank or every time I'm going through TSA, often it's Stephen. And and I just go with it. Yeah, totally.
Sure.
And just like the PH is like Stephanie kind of thing. And so I was like, just going, man, it's like every time nobody can ever say my name right, but I saw this this meme that I thought was so funny. And it's like Steven, Steven, says good evening, Evening. Then Steven, Steph, says good evening, Ephening. And I'm like, yeah. And I love it. Right. But like, so you can like be manuscripting, right? And there's stuff that works on paper, but then after you try to, like, I couldn't say that in a message, but then if I have a television beside me, you could place totally that right there, lean into that, So as you capture story, are you thinking, okay, this is how I can use this picture that I captured of,
I did it a couple of weeks ago. Like I was telling a story about, how I grew up a churchy church kid. Like I was at church a lot, and I was talking about the difference between church clothes and play clothes. Because like I was a kid, like you had your play clothes, which was like 90% of your wardrobe, and then you had your church clothes. And nary the two shall meet. Like you don't get the two mixed up ever. And so I threw up a picture that we've had of like me when I was 6 with my whole family for the church directory back when we all used to dox ourselves at every church and printed out the church directory. And so for me, it was like, hey, that's kind of funny, like church clothes, play clothes. Yep, that's funny. But then when I put the picture up, it's like, and you see it, it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I totally get it. Even if you didn't grow up in church, you're like, oh, I get it.
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes it's like an exclamation point that can really kind of punch up something that's funny is when someone can see a visual of it. Yeah, and especially if you're making fun of yourself.
Exactly. Especially. Yes, I totally agree. Okay, where in California did you grow up?
Bay Area, baby. East Bay.
East Bay. Gosh. All right. Okay.
NorCal.
I mean, I grew up in Southern California, so I've always felt connected. But then you're probably now that we know NorCal, SoCal is different. All that just went out the window. Yeah. Okay. I also I've mentioned this a couple times already, but I want people to know that about the Communicators Masterclass, and they can go. It's the website's themasterscommunicator.com.
The master, just one master.
The Master Communicator.
Themastercommunicator.com.
Themastercommunicator.com. See,
that's right.
This is what a good interviewer does. They say it wrong, and then you say it correct, and then I have to say it correct, then you say it correct, and now
we've said it 4 times.
4 times, and people are going to remember it's the mastercommunicator.com.
Themastercommunicator.com.
Okay, so in this though, if you go there, what's great is you have the course, but you're also doing personal preaching coaching. And talk about the course, talk about what people, if they go there, and coaching, and just again, what I love about you is your heart for the local pastor, your heart for someone who maybe even has like a business talk that they want to get better at. And I know we have people who listen, who are not just preachers and pastors, but like your heart is to help someone who has a talk or an idea or a message or wants just to get better at the craft of preaching communication. Talk about that and how this course can help them.
Well, that's very, very, very kind of you. And last time we were together, I was sharing with you like how excited I was to finally be done with it, because the course has been in my head for 10 years. I mean, it's like once I came up with the funnel and was like, wait, this is actually really helpful, and began teaching it to our teaching team, and they began to implement it. And I would see like, this is actually really good stuff, as well as all the stuff that I learned from, again, being mentored by and watching and coming up around great communicators, being a student of the game. Like, I was like, I have all this stuff. I've taught all these at conferences, and I've done this, this breakout, or I've done this main stage session on this one aspect of it. But man, I feel like there's some more to say here. And so that's what all the course is, Carter. It's just taken all the last, it's been 26 years.
Wow.
How old is that? 26 years of being up on stage regularly in front of a significant amount of people and around the world doing this stuff. And so it's taking all of that, and most of it just the frustration of like not knowing what I was doing, but being pushed out in front of thousands of people and said, here you go. So, having to learn on the fly and learn that stuff. And so, it walks through the funnel. Definitely. That would be the heartbeat of the course, but there's whole sessions on how finding your voice, like what is your unique, and I have these like 4 communication styles: information, inspiration, application, transformation. What's your unique teaching style? Because your voice really matters. And then there's a whole session right after that. It's kind of like love language. It's like, well, that's your voice, but what's your, what style does your audience or the people that you're in front of, how do they best learn? Because not every room, not every group certainly is the same. So, there's sessions on that. There's sessions on what to do on stage, like super practical, like where I walk through a whole session of, do you use a podium? Do you use notes? Do you use an iPad? How do you use props? All that stuff that I wish someone would have just said here.
Yes.
Do with it as you will, but this is at least start from here. And I had to kind of figure it all out largely on my own, or I'd go to a conference and I hear one good thing, but I spent $3,000 to be here and I only got that one good thing. Holy cow, great experience. But I want to get better because I want to be better this next week. Because if I grow as a communicator, God, others are going to grow. Like that's the idea, is if I grow, I might be a part of helping others grow as well. So that's the whole course. Is putting all that together. I mean, I don't know, it's like 8 hours of sessions, all bite-sized, like 15 minutes or so each. And it's, like any of these online courses things, it's forever. Like once you buy it, you got it. And anytime you want to come back to it, there's tons of downloads for you to start implementing and working out, sample messages, like all kinds of stuff. Just everything basically I've got to help anyone who wants to grow as a communicator, whether you have been doing it for 25 years or whether you got your very first talk coming up, whether you are in front of 5,000 people or whether you're in front of 13 kids in a middle school youth group, like where I was at. So it's really for anyone who wants to grow as a communicator. So that's the course.
Yeah. And I think what's really great about this is, you've got these bite-sized chunks, and for many of us, we're developing other communicators within our church, within our team, to be able to watch this. And then to be able to talk about it and process it. And Jarrett, I mean, you are a master. You're a master at this craft. I love learning from you. I love your heart as a preacher. You're a guy I would love to learn from on a regular basis. And I do listen from messages I tune in online. But you're just you're so easy to listen to, and you're not like, oh, that's nice, but you push. And you challenge and you inspire, and you do give me next steps on ways that I can take this idea, this concept of embodiment of the kingdom of God, and really making it practical so that the Spirit can flesh it out in my one and only life. I love the way you do this.
That's very kind.
Let me just ask one sports question, because you've been doing this for 26 years and you're wearing a Chicago Bulls hat. Who's your favorite Chicago Bulls player who wore the number 26?
Yes, that would be family friend of ours, Kyle Korver.
Kyle Korver, good man.
Three-point assassin.
2010 to 2012.
Yep. Just give me the hot sauce. Give me that hot sauce.
I just had to give you a chance to give a little love to Kyle Korver.
Yes,
Korver, he's a good man.
We love the Korvers. They're good friends.
And whoever chooses number 26 as a basketball jersey number,
listen, they have a lot to live up to.
Okay, so let's just say one last time.
Yeah.
The master
communicator.com. Not .biz.
Not .biz.
.com. Yeah, and that's the place like that you can sign up for the course. And because like I'll say this, and I'll say the little fun thing, if people stay till the very end. You mentioned the coaching piece. That's been, for me, that is like the thing I love doing the most. And I know you and I have talked about this, like that is really what I love giving my time to. I love the course. It's done. It's out there. It's like, so I hope it's helpful to people, but that live, every other week, watching your message, giving you feedback. I've helped a guy that did a TED Talk, needed some help. So we got together and worked out his TED Talk. And, so it's not just for church stuff. I helped a CEO was doing his first round of raising funds. And so we put his pitch together. We were, which is very different context. Like we're not using biblical direction for his app, but it's taking some of the same principles. And so that's the thing, dude. Like, I don't know. That's what I love to do, is help other communicators get better. And so there's ways you can find on the mastercommunicator.com. Just reach out to me. Let's just talk if that's something you might be interested in, because that's just what I love to do, is to help men and women use their communication gifts that God has given them to help others grow and find and follow Jesus. So yeah, the fun thing too, buddy, is like because I love this podcast and it's a resource that I use, honestly, regularly. How about let's just sweeten the pot and do a little discount. Let's do a discount right now. Let's do it. Nope. My manager's saying no, but no, I'm going to do it. They're telling me not to, but I'm going to do it, Carter. If you use the code CRAFT when you go to checkout, so CRAFT, let me spell that for you.
Like the cheese?
Okay. No, that's a K.
That's a K.
Like craft and character.
Oh, yeah.
If you use just CRAFT, CRAFT, you get 20% off the course. We'll do that just for the next couple of weeks when people hear this. So if anyone wants to do it, that's money back in your pocket right there. You get better and you get to save a little money. So if anyone wants to use the code CRAFT for 20% off of the course, I'm happy to do that because this podcast and you are such a resource, dude. I love you and I'm so glad you're back in Chicago. I'm so glad you're back, man. And so glad we got to do this in this fashion. So thanks, dude, for all that you're doing. And if anyone wants to check it out, what's that website again, Carter?
Mastercommunicator.com.
Good job.
Let's go.
Good job. Let's go.
Oh, man. Yes. Well, hey, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. And I'm just so grateful for Jarrett. You can learn more about him, soulcitychurch.com, jarrettstevens.com. His wife is one of the best church leaders I know, Jeannie Stevens. She's amazing. She's just a force for good. But friends, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Please go check out the mastercommunicator.com. Type in that craft, get that 20% off.
Listen, 20% off. I mean, that's
bro. That's
these are tough financial times. So
we go to Olive Garden. Let's go. You know,
put that right towards some free breadsticks. Put that 20% towards some free breadsticks.
So, but seriously, to our sponsors, Preaching Today, Hope International, Food for the Hungry. I hope that this message will help you really figure out that value of tension, finding your voice, unpacking that funnel to help walk people through so that they can really experience what the practice is to put this biblical direction into play. So, Jarrett Stevens, thanks so much, man. Much love, grace, and peace, everyone. We will see you soon. Take care.